Hello everyone, 76 Patriot here, and today I want to do a video that may be slightly controversial with some folks, but I want to do my worst case scenario presidential election for Trump and the Republicans. And just to clarify, I'm not dooming at all. This is not my official prediction. I think it's very unlikely, incredibly unlikely to happen at this point, but I think it's good to be fair. I just did my best case scenario one several days ago, so I think to be fair, we should counter that with, what could happen in a theoretical kind of blue wave, if you will. So obviously the West Coast would be going blue, and also I'm not going to spend too long on this video. It's just another kind of a wake up call, theoretical, if you will. Of course, we got Hawaii. Of course, all these states are going safe blue at that point. We have Maine's first, of course. We've Illinois. I would say Virginia probably at this point in a best case. I'm sorry, worst case for Trump, best case for Harris. You got all these states, of course. You got New York, Delaware. I would probably, oh yeah, Colorado for sure, and that's I think it for the safe Dem seats. So see, even in DC, so even in a safe or very strong, if it was a blue wave, this would probably be like in the popular vote, probably like Harris plus probably something similar to 2020, maybe Harris plus 4 plus 5. I don't know, to get this blue, which I'm just gonna say right now is not happening at this point. But let's just theorize. So we're already at 200 for safe Dem seats. Even here, there's still not a ton of safe Dem. Safe rep seats, of course, we would still have all of the Mountain West, even in a best case Democratic scenario, or worst case Republican, if you will. I just don't see a chance that any of these would really become likely at this point. Of course, you got West Virginia, South Carolina, and Kansas. We could debate could get to a likely margin, but that's just not going to happen. I just don't see that possibly happening at this point. So I think that's it for the safe Republican states, if you will. Actually, let's throw Alaska in. I just don't see a scenario in which Alaska becomes under 10 points. So now let's move on to the likely Democratic states. And there are quite a few on here. Of course, we'll start off with the state of New Hampshire. This is basically under the assumption that Harris is doing very well with a lot of your educated population, very well among, obviously, the white voters, because white voters account for probably 90-some% of the population in the state. So, this would put it back kind of in its 2020 margin, around 7 points. I could definitely see that in a scenario like this. We would also have to categorize a state of, actually, you know what? New Mexico, I messed up, guys. That would be safe Dem. So we put that kind of in the safe Dem category, barring that little mistake on my part, if you will. Maine at large would be likely to, predominantly due to being, again, it was about 7-point victory for Biden in 2020. They had a 3-point for Clinton 4 years prior. But regardless, again, another one of these kind of northeastern states that's conducive. It's swingy in a blue wave year or something. Another likely Democratic district would be Nebraska's second. Omaha has been trending off of a cliff. It has basically it's full of neocons and liberals, and it's a very urban and kind of suburban district. And this is one that I believe was actually won by Biden by a likely margin. I think it was around 7. Don't quote me on that, but I think it was around 7 points. And this is definitely something that would happen in this scenario, I think. Probably a similar margin it would be won by for the Dems. And basically, that is, I think, actually it for the likely states. Minnesota, I'm actually debating. I'm still kind of on the fence about whether I should put that as likely or safe in this scenario. I'd probably, I might have messed up again. Maybe I should have put it as safe. I'm gonna put it as likely, because the way I kind of categorize likely is basically anything kind of below 10 points. And I just really don't see a scenario in which Minnesota trends even to the left of 2020. I just can't really see it at this time, particularly if RFK is going to be on the ballot. Now, he could drop out, but we'll see what happens. So, again, probably six, maybe a 7 or 8, even 8-point victory for Harris in this case. And I believe that's it for the likely Dem states. So moving on to the likely Republican states, we would have the second district of Maine. This is, again, pretty much what it was won by in 2020. I believe like 8 or 9 points for President Trump. And I would definitely, it's going Trump either way. Even if it was a huge blue landslide, Maine's second is probably at this point, due to trending slightly right, probably going to go Trump, even in the worst case scenario. As far as other likely Republican states, we would have to, you know what? I actually forgot the state of Indiana. Man, I am messing up today, but I'm just going to be honest. I'm tired, haven't slept a ton lately, so I'm just going to be real. Definitely a safe state, no question about it. We'd certainly have the state of Iowa, which is one, obviously a former bellwether state, trended to the right sharply in the past several cycles, particularly under Trump being at the top of the ticket. Same thing with Ohio. These are states that I could see being around 7, maybe 7 points, 8 points in this scenario. I mean, we're talking about doing worse than 2020 when Trump won them by nearly 10. I just don't think that's possible. But again, let's just say, there's a lot of theoretical situations in which things could possibly go wrong in this scenario, and I could see these states around those margins. That's it for the likely Republican states. So moving on to the lean Democratic states, we'll start off with the state of Nevada. And this was actually lean Democratic in 2020. It was a margin of, I believe, just over 2 points. So many would categorize that as leaning Democratic. I would too. I think it would, in this scenario, it would probably be won by that margin again. But nonetheless, again, I'm not going to take too long in this video just because I see this. I don't want to come across as dooming, and I just don't see this as a likely scenario, guys, at this point. I think this is very unlikely. But just to be fair, I feel like I should put this out kind of to counter, again, my last video. So, of course, we also have the state of Michigan would necessarily be in this category as kind of the bluest member of the Rust Belt trio. Again, I could easily see this in this theoretical scenario being right in line with the 2020 margins by about 2 point, I forget, it was like 2 and change, maybe it's 2.4 percentage points for Harris in this case. And that would mean she's obviously doing very well with minorities. Perhaps she picked a Veep that didn't tick off all the Arab voters in the state. I don't know. But it's definitely possible. And then I think that is actually it for the lean Democrat states. So moving on to the lean Republican states, of course, we will have the state of Texas, first of all. And again, I'm not predicting this will happen because I do not believe it will. But in this scenario, say for whatever reason, Hispanics don't trend as far to the right as maybe we were expecting, or perhaps the urban areas has come out in full force, stronger than 2020. Maybe it's a 3-point win for Trump at the end of the day. Again, I don't see this happening. I'm just going to say right now, this isn't going to happen, at this point. But theoretically, this would in a worst case scenario. But also have to put the state of Florida in that category. This is one that Trump actually only won by a lean margin in actuality in 2020 and by a tilt margin, I believe, in 2016. So this is one in this scenario you'd probably see like a 3 to 4 point win, maybe a 3-point win at the end of the day. Say these trends to the right don't continue as strongly as we were expecting or whatever. Some voters stay home. I don't know what it would be. But it says it's basically impossible to see a scenario and this is the great news for Trump, I should say, and the Republican base is that there is basically, even in the worst possible case scenario for Trump, realistically, I could not see a scenario in which Texas or Florida went blue. It's just, at this point, it's not happening. It's like Color saying, in the worst case scenario for Biden, even in his worst case, nobody had Colorado going red. It's just one of those kind of fundamental things at this point that's just, you can't really do a course correction if you're so far voting for one candidate, even in the worst case. It would be very hard to change, if that makes sense. So moving on to the, wow, I guess I'm kind of going through here fast. I guess we're down to the tilt Democrat states. So of course and there are quite a few on here. So we would have the state of Arizona. State of Arizona, of course, has been trending left rapidly, and let's just assume in this case that for whatever reason the Republicans just stay home. It's certainly, I could see it going blue before Nevada. Actually, even in this scenario, it's a margin, it's tilt instead of lean. But theoretically, Arizona would go blue probably by, I don't know, under a point. I don't see it going blue by a lean margin in this scenario. I just really don't. I think Harris is such a poor candidate that she is just, she lost the Hispanic vote, I believe, back in the Senate primary, Democrat primary, and she was running originally in 2016. I believe that that's correct. So she's not a particular outperformer with that demographic. Same thing in Wisconsin. Again, these are all in a worst case scenario. I'm basically seeing 2020 margins here in a lot of cases. I cannot envision, an Obama worst case scenario, Obama even 2012 or something like that. I just don't think that's possible in this country anymore. The country is too divided, and in a way, we could say thank God for that, because we're not gonna wake up and be like, there's a massive blue wave, 360 votes for the Democrat. This is not going to happen anymore. So I would have to say the same thing with Pennsylvania. This is assuming that minorities come home to Harris very strongly. There's Philly and Pittsburgh, sky-high turnout. And rural voters just kind of do what they did with Dr. Oz. They just kind of stay home and don't come out. And again, it's not going to happen. At this point, Trump is a turnout machine in rural Pennsylvania. However, just for theoretical purposes of this video, Pennsylvania would probably be about a one and a maybe half point win for Harris. And now moving on to the state of Georgia. This is one, I think, unfortunately, even making this video feels a bit ludicrous, because I feel like my best case scenario is much more likely to happen than, I'd give this about like a 10 to 20% chance of happening at this moment, and probably the best case scenario for Trump, like a 60% chance, maybe more. So to even put Georgia as blue feels a bit preposterous, but again, for the purposes of this video, I would probably see it, assuming there was, a Democrat winning the popular vote by probably like about 4. Couldn't really see it any more than that, say about 2020, what it was in 2020. Let's say Georgia goes blue by like half a point. I just don't see it going blue by any more. And then North Carolina. This would be a big flip. The state only voted to the right, or not to the right, for Trump rather, by just over 1 point in 2020, which was incredibly narrow. Again, this would be like the squeakiest of squeakers. I live in North Carolina, and first of all, I can tell you it's not going blue this year. Second of all, if it was to go blue, it would certainly be narrower than Georgia. It would probably be like 0.1%. That's just how close it is to not even being a possibility. You know what I mean? If basically, even in the worst case Trump scenario, something crazy happens, in the election, I would be hard pressed to see North Carolina going blue. And if it is, we're talking about hundreds, maybe just a mere few thousand votes here. So that's basically it. That's my worst case scenario prediction. So the Dems Harris, I guess, would have 319, Trump would have 219. And I just want to reiterate, as much as I possibly can, I'm not dooming. I've definitely not jumped aboard the, oh, it's over train. I see so many people on social media and X and in the news as being, conservative influencers being like, it's over, it's done. The Harris momentum is too strong to overcome. I think that's a ridiculous, frankly, absolutely ludicrous notion. The election's just getting warmed up. We have 90 some days left. We got to keep pressing. There's so much ground to cover. But I really think Trump is going to win, and maybe big this election. Who knows? This is just if, let's say, I want to prepare, be fair and prepare for the worst case scenario. This is not to get our hopes down, but just say we woke up the next morning. I want to, you I don't want to have to eat my words about predicting the Trump, these Trump landslides, or that he's going to do really, really well, and then all of a sudden wake up November 6th, the early morning hours, just like we did in 2020, and all of a sudden there's ballots being found by the thousands in, all the swing states, and water pipes breaking, and just crazy stuff happening. So, it's important to expect the unexpected, sadly, at this point in American politics. But again, I'm not predicting this. So take it with a grain of salt. Again, we have to keep striving so this isn't the result. So we don't have to look back on this as kind of the end of America, the American Republic, if you will. So with that in this video out of the way, guys, thank you so much for watching, and hopefully I'll see you on a much more hopeful note in the next one. Have a great day.